So the point of this talk is my background. I learned that when you look at your plant, your operators are your biggest value in your plant, right? They're the front line, and anything we can do to support them only makes the entire operation run better. This is kind of this pyramid that we have right now, right? We have data on the floor that the operators are gathering. In this pyramid, it goes up the chain, right? We take that information or that data and we feed it up, and the engineer says, oh, with this data, and this data, and this data. So to the point Roberto was talking about, all those systems we named, usually it's at a level up where we start pulling that together, right? Because that's what the engineer needs to see. And then the manager wants to see more business. So then you combine it with business information on the top. And it keeps going up the hill, right? What happens next is decisions come back down, right? So I heard one person bring up on the floor, we've got a process where they're able to make those decisions. And we've chosen very specific small times where we feel comfortable with that. That was the reason for the question. Historically, I've seen in operations, we say, you know, run that by me. Let me make that decision. I'll help you work through that. And in doing so, we have some issues. Then that turns into an operator going and adjusting something, right? If it's not an automated system, turning a valve, changing a procedure, doing something of that nature. So I want to ask a question to the group. If this is the way we're doing things now, right? What are some bad things about this? What are some opportunities we're missing if this is how we're using our data? Time, huge, right? Can you explain that a little bit more? What about time? Huge, huge. We were having a conversation with somebody running a bioreactor, and they need instantaneous turnaround to know that that data should drive information that makes an action happen right now. And if we miss that time period, it costs us money. We have to scrap a batch. We lose all of that. So time is absolutely huge. What other kind of issues do you see with this? People who are on our front lines working this stuff are our most knowledgeable people a lot of times, right? And either through trust or maybe a past experience, we go, you know what? I don't want to get in trouble for you making a bad decision, so I'm going to make the decision for you. One of the things I did learn in the Navy was the guys who worked for me didn't work for me. I worked for them, right? This pyramid, if you look, the point is at the person at the bottom, that operator. They're the most important person there. They're the only person really making something from one thing to another. Everybody else, we're overhead, right? We're extra cost. So if we think about that, we should try to drive that decision-making to that point of contact, to that subject matter expert. So that's a great one, right? What else? What's another thing we can see here of maybe something not so great if this is how we operate? Who's been an operator before? Yeah, if you've been an operator before, do you feel that if you get to make decisions, you can move forward? What happens if someone says, no, 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 you have to come through me for decisions? Does that work very well for operators? No, it makes you feel, well, why am I here? I'm just gathering data, right? I'm not empowered to make decisions. I'm not getting help from my team for this. And after a while, that can get pretty old, right? We can go, well, why do you even need me here? Why aren't you doing this yourself? Especially with the people we have coming into our plants now, we have got to understand how we can make them feel part of this, right? How we can take them and put them into the process and allow them to be even more value add, okay? So if you can go to the next slide. This is a graph and it's not mathematical by any means. Also, it's pretty bad because if you look past current and future, expected output is a flat line. If you run your business that way, it's not good, right? We want to get better. But this is really what we're going to talk about is kind of how we've allocated resources to get to an output, right? So we have inputs, outputs. I'm a systems guy, so that's how my brain thinks is what do I have to put in to what do I have to get out? So if you go to the past, in the past, this is how we operated. This is how we kept our output at the level. We had operators who knew what they were doing for a long period of time. They kept all the knowledge. We said, you know what? They've been here 10, 15, 20 years. We trust them. We'll give them a little bit of technology that we've got to have them deal with. But for the most part, we're going to really rely on our operators, right? If you go to current state, operational experience, we've seen it everywhere, has gone down, right? We don't have people in there who have been in the plants for 20, 30 years. They've been in there for 6 months. And when that happens, you can't count on that operational experience anymore. So if you have the same amount of technology and the operational experience went down, leaves that big red gap. Now that gap means either that line isn't going to be met, so you have down on the production, or you're just barely making it by and you're pretty much living that nothing happens bad that's going to shut us down, right? And that gap is appearing everywhere. And we see a bunch of reasons why, right? And I talked about new people coming in. How many of the operators now, if you look in your plant, right, stay for an extended career? A lot of them do a time and move on to their next role, right? And move around that way. And that's not bad. That's good. But that also means that we have to backstop them and help them out. So if you look in the kind of the future state, what we've got to do is put a little bit more technology in there, but I don't want to automate everything. So somehow we've got to have operators interfacing with the technology in a way that bridges that gap. It's not replacing operators. We're never going to replace operators, nor should we want to. But what we should want to do is give that operator a super suit where they can walk around like Iron Man and they can see, yes, this is important. I need to do this, and that's broken and I need to fix this. And it makes sense that they can do it over and over again. We've got to support our operators. And so that's really what we're going to kind of talk about, is that digital gap in there. So let's think we had our perfect operator on the floor. Give me some operator traits. If we could go perfect operators, right? What would they be? What would they do? How would they act? What do you guys think? Curiosity. Beautiful, right? Examining why something's not right. Great one. What's another thing? What's that? Fearless. Beautiful, right? Being able to make a mistake and then learn from that mistake so they don't make it again. Roberto loves talking about running into a wall, right? If you run into that wall and you run into it again, you're probably not the smartest person. We're better than that, right? Instead, say, okay, hey, man, don't do that. Do this instead, right? So we don't hit the same wall. We'll hit a new wall. We'll hit a new wall. We always will. But at least we're moving forward, hitting different walls. So absolutely, you've got to be okay to fail, and you've got to be curious. What else? Proactive, right? So if we think about where proactive comes from, right, it means you are able to see in the future, right? How do we get to that point? Seeing in the future? Well, if you've been around for 40 years, it's not seeing in the future. You've seen everything that can happen, so it's a pattern recognition. If you're new, you don't have that pattern recognition, so you can't see into the future, right? So that's a great point, proactive. One more, give me another one here. What's another thing if we had our ideal operator? Okay, well, I'll show you the three I put up there. And they kind of break into a lot of what you've talked about, right? They have institutional knowledge. So they understand that a single piece of data, right, is part of a bigger program, right? They understand it comes into something else. And more than likely, they've seen the pattern enough times that they've run into the wall, they know not to anymore, right? Unfortunately, maybe that's not documented. Maybe that was, I'm an operator. I've done it a couple times. I failed a couple times, so I know not to do it that way. How do you get that knowledge transfer to a new person so they don't have to hit that same wall? Because it's going to be the same exact wall that your senior operator, right? The next one is, and this goes with the proactive, is how do you take a data point and not go, oh, I need to do something, but say, well, okay, this data with this data with this data, bring it together. Now it's information, right? Now it has context. Now it's not just a point, it's a vector. It tells you a direction and an amplitude, right? It doesn't just say, hey, this is good or bad. It says, hey, this is good or bad because of these other things happening, right? And then lastly, that standard response. That kind of ties in, right, with that curiosity is you figure out what the right response is after you've hit that wall a couple of times. And then you hope you can get other people to get into that same pattern, right? So to do this, really, if you think about it, what we're trying to do is we're trying to put another operator over a new operator's shoulder. Think about it. If you could get a little operator, senior operator, clone their brain, make them a little person on their shoulder. So every time they're about to go do something, go, well, in my experience, what usually happens here, and they go, oh yeah, okay, thanks, little operator. And they go do the different thing, right? Or they go, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go open this. Go, hey, double check, make sure this is the right thing to do. Okay, thanks, little operator, right? So how do we get that little operator on the shoulder into reality? because all the knowledge is out there. If you go talk to any of your senior operators, they'll tell you more than you want to know, right? They will tell you why it should be done that way, what's happened in the past if you don't do it that way, how they've screwed it up in the past, how they don't ever want to do it this way again, how all the new people screw it up, right? They've got all this info. It's all there for us. It's all there. Unfortunately, that group is leaving. That knowledge is leaving. That's going to leave us with that little operator on their shoulder who's not a real person anymore because that person retired. Well, we can't just let it go. We can't just go, well, I don't know. John's not here anymore. We can't do that. Or I don't know, Lucy used to always do that and she doesn't work here anymore. So I guess we just don't do that anymore. That's not allowable. We can't get there. So we've got to build some kind of system where we use that operator. We build a little operator on the shoulder, right? So can you go to the next slide? This is kind of a model of what I'll show you of how I'd like us to think about this, right? There's two control loops. If you think about your operator on the floor, they're looking at a data point, they're taking logs, they're looking at screens, and what they're doing is they're pulling that information together, they're making a decision, and then they're acting on it, right? That loop happens all the time, over and over and over again. What your managers are doing is they're looking at how operations are happening, and they're going, you're doing this loop? I actually kind of want it to look like this now. So they're changing procedures, they're changing set points, right? They're changing instruction, they're changing training. And you hope that what happens gets translated to the floor. Anybody have a good story about how you can't pass information to the floor and I told them 100 times, but they still did it this way? Anybody had that happen? Right? Anybody say, yeah, but we trained you on that. And the person goes, oh yeah, I forgot. Right? Because we're human. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna forget something. So let's give them a little operator. So they're like, I can't remember what I gotta do. Little operator, what should I do? Awesome, thank you, right? And you can move forward that way. So this that we're kind of looking at is how do we have those two control loops looped in here? Now, if you notice up in the corner, I've got a meter. So, right, so some live data, a pump speed, if you will. But the other part about it is there's that little database symbol. So as we went around at the beginning, you guys all told Roberto all the different systems you have. So that's not just one little database, right? That's SAP, it's your MES, it's your quality management system, it's your Delta V, it's your OSI Pi, it's your quality management. It's all those different systems that need to be pulled together so that one data point doesn't tell you good or bad. You need that data point along with other data points to say good or bad. If you are able to do this in a digital way, now what you can do is you can give all that information, instead of it being rolled up to a manager, it can be provided to the operator, right? So a lot of people have gotten to the point of, okay, well, let's pull that together and tell people when things are good or bad. But that only gets them halfway there. Because if you tell me something's good or bad, my first question to you is going to be, what do you want me to do about it? And if I can't tell you that, if I don't have that little operator on the shoulder, it doesn't matter what I've shown. Because what you do from there, who knows what it's going to be. I'm working with a water utility right now, and I talk to their operators, and the senior operator's biggest complaint, when I come in for my shift, I have no clue what the person before me did. I spent my entire shift trying to figure out how to correct the system, hope they don't mess it up when they come back on watch, but I know when I come back, it'll be all messed up again. Why is the reason? Well, you know, they see this little wiggle and they start turning valves and flinging stuff. I know better than that because I'm a senior operator, and I know you don't have to do that because it'll come back in the spec. That's great, but how is that translated? How is that made sure that gets transferred to your new operator, right? So we're going to talk about a demo that uses this, but when I talk about the demo, I don't want you to think that, oh, all you got to do is put tools in place, right? So let's talk about tools. There we go. So let's talk about a tool you would hand to your operator. Any tool. We're going to talk digital tools, but this should go for any tool you're handing to your operator. Give me some good tool traits. What's something that you would want for a good tool? Think about when you've tried to give something to your operators that didn't work. So give me the opposite of that. Because I know I failed a lot giving operators something to use and it never gets used. So I know all the reasons they'll fail. Huge, huge. I'm not a computer guy. These hands are not computer programming hands. There are people in this room that can do that. That is awesome. I can. But I want to take advantage of computers without being a computer programmer. So yes, it's simple. It's got to be usable. Okay, what else? Accurate. You got to trust it. right? If it's a tool that doesn't give you the right answer, quickly it gets thrown away, right? So it's got to be able to be changed if necessary, right? I'm not an MES guy. I've worked in standard regulated areas before. I know how MES is so regulated, and it makes sense, right? You're putting something into someone's body, you need to make sure you do that. However, how hard is it to change something in MES systems? It's damn near impossible, right? It's the reason EIS exists. It is so tough. So as a tool, it does exactly what it needs to do, and it loses some of that ability to be flexible, right? What else? One kind of goes with the simple, right? Is the in-house ownership, right? And I know contractors are going to hate hearing this, right? But you should have a tool that you can use and change, right? That you can make adjustments to, that you can improve, because we all like continuous improvement. And so if you know there's an opportunity there and you can't take that opportunity, then maybe it's not that great of a tool, right? I want something where if my operator can't use it, then it's no good, right? How do I get my operators to use these tools? And once you do that and you show, hey, you can use this to come up with a procedure. And then if that procedure doesn't work, or if you need to change it, you can change it here without going all the way up that pyramid, hoping it works and coming back with that decision. You can do that locally, right? That's huge to me. Why? Because now your operator feels like they are part of the solution. As soon as they're the ones who go, you know what? I really think if we did this different, it would improve the process. You go and make that change for them in real time and try that process again and go, wow, that was great. That's the new way we're doing it. Think about the impact that has. Think about our current structure and how difficult being able to do that is. Now, I know some people will go, well, now everybody's changing it all different ways. Great. So you have to have some structure in there. You have to have some revision control, and the tool has to incorporate that, right? But really and truly, what we're looking at doing is how do we put that little operator? What tools can we use to get that little operator? Okay.